Welcome back to another episode of Diary of a Sales Engineer with your host, Samir Kosser.
And I'm Ryan Kruger. Today we are on episode 9, and our topic will be the importance of soft skills. We have an amazing guest with us today. His name is Evgeniy Karam, and Evgeniy is an author, cybersecurity architect, advisor, podcaster, awarded dad, and outdoor enthusiast with over 25 years of experience, including work for global VARs and MSSPs. He offers a unique panoramic view of the industry. Currently, he runs his own cyber media consulting services, leveraging his deep industry knowledge and media expertise to guide clients through cybersecurity complexities. His literary work includes a book on soft skills for technical sales, further broadening his consulting to encompass mentorship on these crucial topics. Additionally, he was one of the early employees for Robert Herjavec at the Herjavec company or the Herjavec group. And we're very excited to have him on today. So, Evgeniy, if you want to go ahead and let us know if we missed anything as a part of the intro.
No, thank you very much. There is definitely some other stuff I'm doing as well, like a podcast and a conference, but thank you very much. Very happy to be here today. There's several podcasts on sales engineering, and I really like what you guys are doing. I think it's a good initiative, and happy to be here today.
Awesome. Yeah, we are excited to have you. So I know the topic that you and I had discussed was the importance of soft skills. So tell us why that's so near and dear to your heart.
Several reasons. One, I spent quite a lot of time in solution architecture, and as part of solution architecture, I did quite a lot of technical pre-sales, and I also did quite a lot of communication and consulting to customers. And what I realized by doing my consultancy for a very long time is whatever we have in our mind is very important. But even more important, how we outcome what we have in our mind towards the people. Because the moment we are presenting or talking or explaining to other people, doesn't matter what we know, doesn't matter what we think we know. It's all important what the other person know and how they consume information. So my role as a professional or somebody else's role as a professional is to explain to the people in the ways they understand, in the ways they consume information, using the metaphors, using the language. If it's a simple language, it's a business language, whatever the way we need to explain to them. And this is why soft skills are very, very, very important. To add on top of this, we had quite a big change for the last 5 years. We lost this momentum of being present in the same room during COVID. And majority of the meetings are done virtually over Zoom, Teams, Google Meets, or any other platforms. So even right now, when we record for people that are watching, you don't really see my entire body. You only see the upper part of me. So if I'm moving out of the frame, you don't really know what I'm doing. If I move here, you see half of my ear. Maybe I'm eating spaghetti. Maybe I'm writing notes. What if I'm looking at a different screen? Like I have another screen over here, so I still see you, but you see part of my face. And there is just like some of the tidbits. So this idea of being in a room and have the entire focus of the person doesn't exist anymore. You've probably been on the calls when you're talking to someone and they're like, yeah, this is amazing. Yeah, tell me more about this. But in reality, they're just being on Facebook, on LinkedIn. So this is just a tidbit. There's much, much more. But I think it's such an interesting and fascinating topic. And I was presenting several weeks ago about the topic, and I had this idea to go and ask ChatGPT, how you doing? So I did it like 8 times. Guess what? I got the same response. I'm doing well. How are you? Yes, it's the same. I'm doing well. How are you? Now, if I ask Ryan in the morning, how you doing 8 times, probably not on item number 5 or question number 5, you're going to kick me in the face, no? Like, what's wrong with you? So, why? Because we're human beings. Everything changed after. It's like we're dynamic people.
Yes, no, I think that's a really good call out. Like, I think there's a lot to unpack with what you brought up, and one of the things that I see a lot of pre-sales folks and sales engineers do is that idea of having multiple screens up. And I think a common mistake that a lot of sales engineers do is they go ahead and they turn and they look at the other one without realizing where the camera is. And so next thing you know, you're actually talking away from it, and it doesn't really feel like you're connecting with the other people. So I always find that it's best to make sure that your audience is lined up with where your camera's at. So that way you're almost making eye contact with them in a very sort of organic way. I think it's like a very small thing that kind of separates different SEs. Or I've seen some early SEs, they'll put up their script on another side and they'll just be like reading it off line by line by line. And then like if you're sitting there on the other side, you're like, dude, I could just send me a video. I don't need you to be here because you've lost the ability to actually connect with the audience. So I think those soft skills are just so important to have.
I'm gonna add one on top if you like play poker, I'm gonna raise this. How many sales engineers and salespeople as well will join the call and tell the customer, the salesperson will say, "Ooh, I have this amazing presentation that my marketing department did, and let me just show you my presentation." And then the engineer will say, "I spent the entire night building this demo on AWS. The moment you see the demo, you're going to be blown away." Did you ask the customer what they want?
No,
Hmm.
you just assumed when you jumped on the call. They're like,
Yes.
oh, this is what they want. I know what they want, and I think that's a great call out of having a discussion before you jump into whatever you have prepared to make sure that what you have prepared is actually in line with what their expectations are. Uh, and I wanted to come back a little bit on the looking at the video part or looking at the screen part, because I've noticed even the orientation and the setup of where this is like my personal thing that I've been figuring out is depending on whether it's Zoom or Teams, sometimes the person who I'm talking to, their face is on like the way right of the screen. So if I look this way, I think I'm looking at their face, but my eyes are looking over there. And Evgeny, I just, from your perspective, like how have you set up your workspace in order to keep that engagement, especially when we have
There
maybe
is a video chapter in the book, but I'll tell you, okay? I'll tell you. So I have actually 3 screens and a laptop. My laptop is on the left. Then I have another screen here on the left. On the right, I have a screen that it's twisted because I want to read documents. And in the middle, I have a teleprompter. So I have a teleprompter with a 10-inch screen, and the screen on the teleprompter is a mirror to my laptop. So whatever I have on my laptop on my left, I can see on the teleprompter. This is why when I'm talking to you, I'm talking right into the camera and I can still see you. And if you ask me to read a document, I'm going to move the document to my laptop screen. I'm going to steal the document here and I will able to read. And you're going to have a feeling that I'm reading and talking to you, even so I'm still reading the document. And
oh,
teleprompter moved way from like 90s, because in the 90s we only saw teleprompters basically when we saw news, like, oh yes, they
yeah.
have a teleprompter behind the camera and they're in the script. And then later on people figure out I can have an iPad, put the iPad on teleprompter and I can read easier. Right now there's many different techniques, but we got to the point, and I'm not promoting any particular company, but I can buy an integrated teleprompter, basically a mirror, where I can put a camera behind and a screen in one unit. We can definitely recommend some later on, but it doesn't really matter. I have a teleprompter and an HDMI screen. That HDMI basically connected to my laptop, and it changed the way I record podcasts. It changed the way how I present. It changed the way how I communicate. All my calls are done with the teleprompter, and I sometimes tell a person, "Hey, by the way, I use a teleprompter. It's a 10-inch screen, but now we're going to talk about a document. I'm going to move and look on the left because I have a 24-inch screen here, and I just want to have a bit more perspective." So I'm doing this communication. I'm telling what's happening. If I'm talking to a person, I'm going to tell them, by the way, you're going to see me going to the right from time to time. And I'm not eating spaghetti. I'm writing notes on my note.
I do love the call out for the writing notes thing. I'm a big pen and paper person myself. I actually do have like a wipeable notebook. Again, no free ads on this podcast, but if you are like a wipeable notepad or a teleprompter company, you want to advertise with us, feel free, but no free ads. But I do like to point that out though, because a lot of the time when my prospects are talking, what I'm doing is I'm actually taking my head and bringing it down. And at this point, if I don't let them know that I'm taking notes, what is their first instinct? This guy's
You
on
don't
his phone
care.
text. He's checking his fantasy apps. He's on Twitter. You just have no idea anymore because it's off camera, off screen, out of mind.
Can we talk
So I like
about
to
the
just
fantasy
be
app?
direct
Oh,
on
I
that.
don't have.
Go ahead.
I was just kidding. Can we talk more about the fantasy app? Now I'm wondering,
Oh yeah, so fantasy out for all the sports here in the U.S. Man, fantasy football, baseball, basketball.
Oh,
I'm constantly plugged in on these things. That is like a very big side passion of mine. So if you have any of those interests, feel free to LinkedIn me. I could talk that stuff all day long. Samir knows all about it. But I think it's important outside of like, the looking at the camera. What are other soft skills do you think are really important in this digital age?
there's quite a lot. So let's go over a few. And because we're talking about video, let's stay on this video part. When we used to travel from a customer to customer, we were able to do two, three, maybe four meetings a day. So we had time to decompress between the meetings, and we didn't really spoke so many hours a day. Right now, we're jumping from a call to call. So two things happening. One, we now suddenly speak for 8, 9, 10 hours a day. Two, we have no time to decompress. I mean, we had no time to understand what just happened, what I need to change. I already jumping on a new call. And by the end of the day, I'm probably exhausted. And I now need to take notes about what happened. So let's talk about the speaking part first. You guys are on podcast, but before the podcast, did you ever record yourself to analyze your voice?
I've actually had a big passion for this my whole life. I've always wanted to become a animation voiceover. So I've taken a few professional voice acting classes, and I
Nice.
realized that it had a very positive impact on my career in sales because I'm doing everything virtually. So one of my biggest sales weapons is my voice, the inflection I give, the tone I give off, the energy that I can bring through my voice and why it's so important. I've realized that it's really benefited me. And I do think if you're out there and watching this, one of those voice acting classes is a vital thing that you could go through and actually do. So I would encourage that to anyone because I do think you can really stand out, especially if you can hook up a professional microphone to your computer and really have the voice be, hypersensitive on really giving you the best outcome. But Samir, what about yourself?
Not so much from a voice perspective, but anytime I've had to give like a speech or anything like that, I would record myself and watch it back. I'm personally a big performer, from dance to magic and whatnot, and so anytime I would have a performance, we would record a run through, then watch the run through back, make those tweaks, and that I mean being able to watch yourself and listen to yourself is really weird at first. And so the fact that I was doing that in a different context when I did come into the sales role and reviewed my demos, I was like, no, this is not weird. This is the time for me to reflect on what I did well. Oh, it looks like my filler words have changed from ahs and ums to, and recognize those things. So, I mean, there is a lot of value in listening to yourself, but it's weird at first.
So you guys definitely cover pretty much everything I want to talk to, and you're an anomaly because most of the people didn't record themselves and really didn't do anything. And yes, everybody I know hated their voice in the beginning. Not many people went to doing voice training. Not many people understand they can change their voice, they can work with a voice. I did a training for voice as well, mainly to understand what I'm missing. I learned that I have quite a low pitch and a high, sorry, a low and a high pitch, but there was nothing in between. So it helped me to understand and how to improve this. I learned to slow down. I learned how to work with filler words. And this is, I think, such a fundamental idea that many people explain that you need to remove filler words. And this is almost says, don't think about pink elephant. And of course, you're going to think about pink elephant. But Samir, as you mentioned, we are in our life changing and our filler words are changing as well. And the easiest things to do and the best things to do in my mind is start to kind of, instead of saying filler words, just have a pause. Instead
Mm-hmm.
of saying like, just be quiet for a second. And we all technical. So I call it like, hey, what if you have like a watchdog and 1% of your CPU in your mind will be watching on your filler words and slowly, slowly removing them. And it's interestingly enough related quite a lot to what I call being present, but basically to fear and anxiety. That it's also a problem and a part of soft skills in my mind. What I mean by this, if we are in fear, if we have some kind of anxiety, if we are afraid to present, we don't know the topic, guess what happens? You're going to be mumbling more, you're going to have much more filler words. When you learn how to control, I'm not saying remove your fear, control your feelings, you will be able to learn how to slow down, be more in the flow. And even if you don't know what you're talking about, you will still sound really well and really convincing. And I'm sure all of us sometimes came to a point when somebody told us you need to present this tomorrow, and you have 2 hours to learn this, and you're jumping on a call, and you're smiling and waving, and you're doing your best to explain to customers something that you have no idea how it's working. And this is where this part come in. And if you piggyback on the idea of fear and an idea of being present in a way, there's a lot of breathing involved. So Ryan, you did voiceover. I'm guessing they explained a lot that you breathing is very important to the way you communicate. I'm wondering, what did you guys learn?
Well, we learned a lot because we were actually more focused on what I thought I was going in for was, learning how to basically become a cartoon character. What we were actually learning was how to deliver like business pitches over like a commercial or radio reading. And during those radio reads, right, you need to have it where your voice can actually hit different levels in there. So, like, one of the concepts that I really like to use, if you're giving like a concept of three, it's good, better, best. So that way, like, you're hitting a tone up and down in there. So that way, like, you're gaining interest in just like the natural way that you're talking. And to be able to work through a 30-second or 60-second or 90-second ad read, you have to breathe in there. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to run out of air to actually move your voice in different directions. So you have to be breathing and pacing yourself throughout the ad read in mind with how long is it actually going to take you to get through this amount of words. But you want to make sure that you're delivering it in a way that's very digestible and understandable. This is where I think it relates to sales, so much so in the virtual world that we do. I'm giving you a business pitch online. If I remove the video, all you're hearing is my voice. So now my voice becomes the thing that's going to make you interested or less interested in what I'm talking about. And so that part becomes so impactful for us to understand. It's why we have to have good pace as we talk. It's why we need to build in pauses into the way we talk. And when we're finished with what we want to say, build in an additional pause to wait for a natural response from the people on the video. So that way it's not just awkward space, but if no one's responded in 5 to 10 seconds, that time feels awkward, but that's okay. But if no one's responded, it's okay to move on to the next thing. Start your flow again, start the pace, hit another natural break. That natural break becomes an opportunity for someone just to speak as if we're sitting down across a dinner table. In the virtual world, this becomes very difficult to do. It's why you see so many times when you get on calls with people that aren't on video all the time, you always have the, me, and it's just people stepping on each other because they don't know how to interact there. So it's why the pacing is really important when we're on these different sales calls.
I'm going to add a bit more about breathing, and we'll talk about more about breaks and pauses because it's a very interesting topic as well related to questions. You mentioned about pacing. So if you're going to have breathing not kind of paced, you're going to run out of breath, and then your next two sentences will not be aligned and not be done at the same level. Basically, what we're talking about, we want to have a controlled breathing. Now, in science, or normal people at least, they say that we breathe from 10 to 15 times a minute. If we're talking about if we're exhausted or we're panicking, it could go 15, 20, 25, 30. If we're running, we all know. And the more quicker we're breathing, the more quicker our heart rate is working as well. So if we can make this analogy, if we can slow down ourselves and slow down the heart rate or slow down the breathing, it will slow down the heart rate and we will automatically will be more relaxed. We're talking about meditation, free diving, all these people that are not fast, they usually learn to slow down. Why it's important? Because if we're panicking before we need to present, or we are not sure when we're starting to breathe faster, if we force ourselves to slow down breathing, and by force myself, there is yoga exercise called 1 to 2 breathing. Inhale for 4, exhale for 8, or box breathing. Navy SEALs use them. Inhale
Mhm.
for 5, hold for 5, exhale for 5, hold for 5. Now it's 20 seconds for one breath. So we just move from 10 to 12 to 3 per minute. And all these techniques can help you to slow down. All these techniques work magically if you just try them to do. And many speakers, many public speakers has a routine how to get into the flow, how to relax themselves before they go on the stage. Because it's totally normal to be scared. It's totally normal to have a fear. It's, I always tell people, if you see a kitty cat on the street, it's okay. If you see a lion on the street and you're not scared, something's wrong with you. So we can use the fear really well. And let's maybe switch. You spoke about pauses and uncomfortable pauses. And I think it's related to asking questions. Open questions, closed questions. It's also part of soft skills, how we talk to people. And it's also part of vulnerability. And I think vulnerability is one of the important soft skills. And I'll explain what I mean by this. If I'm asking you how many widgets you have in the company, you say 2, 3, 5. It doesn't really help me. It doesn't create a conversation. If I ask you, can you explain me about your widget infrastructure? Now you have to tell me and tell me more. So different ways I can ask different questions. You mentioned about sometimes you ask a question and everybody is quiet or everybody doesn't want to say anything. It depends what you ask. But in many cases, you maybe have a question that is kind of fundamental, that's quite important. And if you ask the question and everybody is quiet, if you have the guts and the vulnerability to kind of don't move on, just wait 5, 10, 20, 25 seconds. It's almost like a chicken game, somebody will start talking. And if they understand they have to talk, they will open up and start talking. And it happened multiple times. But you need to have this vulnerability and this kind of guts to actually wait and don't talk. Because many people ask a question, they don't get a response in the next 2, 3 seconds, and they move on because they don't want to wait. They're afraid to wait.
I really like that. And one thing that I'll do is I'll actually have conversation with my account executives on that, because I have found out if you let it get really uncomfortable and you just don't say anything, somebody is going to speak up and you're actually going to find out something really interesting once they speak up. But what happens is if you're not aligned with your rep, that time gets awkward. And then you hit the 10 to 15 seconds, your account exec is already thinking, all right, I need to interject here because it's starting to get weird. But if you are both on the same page, we've asked a really important question. Let's let them respond. Wait the 30, 40 seconds. You'll see, like, somebody's going to come off mute and then they're going to give you something really interesting. They're just a little bit hesitant to do it, but they're starting to realize you're not going to move on until something's responded. So I do like playing that game. It's very difficult to do at first. I remember like the first time I did it, we were probably like 15 seconds in, and immediately I was like, oh, okay, I got to speak up. This is too long, too long. But the more comfortable you get with it, the longer that can get extended to. Now I could go minutes without a response. I'll just sit there and say, okay.
You mentioned something about communication with your salesperson. And I was thinking quite a lot about this topic. When I was in Horjoy group, I always ask people when we join the call, please be on Teams, Slack, whatever the channel we use right now. We use Teams in there. Why? Because I want to make sure we can communicate to each other during the call. And this could be, hey, Ryan, wait, don't interrupt, don't switch topics. I need this time. Or take over. I need to think about something. They ask me a question and I don't have an answer. So talk about something. So these communication channels are very important. But as everything else pretty much in life, we cannot just paint one color and say, this is what you need to do. Because I have friends that amazingly smart, but like, I don't do multitasking. I don't type. This does not happen to me. Like, okay, fine. Let's find a different way to do it. Let's have a Google document open or some kind of a way to interact with you that will be aligned with you, whatever it is, with one of my friends, we had a WhatsApp call going on. basically video, and I'm on a side for just shaking my finger, and I know like, wait, I need to take this.
Mhm.
And we don't even look on this basically, but we know how to communicate there. So there is different ways to communicate with your salesperson and find this way, understand what works for you. Again, everybody's different.
Yeah, that's huge because there's been times where it's clearly a miscommunication between me and my rep in front of the prospect, and that just makes you look like bad and fumbling. And I also with the silence part, I used to get very fidgety and not know what to do. So I always have like a couple things to drink on my desk, and anytime there's extended period of silence, it's like, all right, grab the coffee, grab the water bottle, take one sip. No response. Let's take another sip. Let's keep sipping something until they respond. Because for me, it's like I need to be doing something, and I don't want to be talking because you want to let that air ride. So that would be another suggestion for other people that start getting anxious of the silence. Drink water.
How
Or
many sips is too many sips before it gets really weird? I don't know. We could probably do a study around that. But again, if you just wait it out, you'll get the answer that you're looking for. Uh, I like the phrase that you said. It's almost like the chicken game, right? It's like you're waiting, who's going to speak up? But if you can reserve yourself and just say, nope, I'm not moving off the question I've asked, somebody will come off mute. That's a guarantee because they're also going to hate the silence as much as you do. So they're going to start speaking to fill that space because they feel uncomfortable too. Now it's a good way to get some really good insights.
and I actually was curious from other like soft skills. We talk a lot about the video aspect of things, but I feel like because we are so focused on video nowadays, that's where our primary mode of communication is. What are things that you see people are starting to lack in the real world now? We're going to conferences, meeting people person to person. Over the last 5 years, in comparison to before to now, I'd be curious. What are your thoughts on stuff that is starting to erode away because we don't have as much normal day to day in real life communication with other folks?
In way we talk over the like Teams, Googles, we can use hooks, reverse hooks or normal hooks to find something to talk about it. When I see you face to face, I can use the same hooks in the office. What I see in the office to ask, hey, you play golf. Hey, you see you kids are in hockey, whatever it is. If I see someone in a conference, in many cases, I will not know how to start the conversation because I don't know what is the hook, the grab I can use to have the conversation start. And as funny as it is, in many cases, you can try, hey, I'm Evgeny. I work here and here. What do you do? So you kind of introduce yourself and then you ask what you do. And I think it's very important to not ask what you do, to first do the first step and tell what you do. And you say my name, what I do, and which company. And it almost required you, almost like I just unlock something that you feel obligated to tell me I'm Ryan and I do blah, blah, blah. You're not going to say, hey, I am John and I'm a serial killer. You actually tell probably.
Yeah, and
Do
I think that comes
you
back to that vulnerability piece, what you talking about a little bit earlier, right? I'm coming to you, opening up. It's a little uncomfortable for us because we're strangers, and showing that I'm vulnerable. And then there's always that, what is it? The rule of reciprocity, where if I'm giving you something, even if it's as little as my name and
Mhm.
where I work, you feel obligated to do the same. And then that really snowballs into a bigger conversation. So I love that.
Speaking
I'm
of
going to a
hooks, too, like
conference
one thing I like
next week. So I'm gonna try that.
Okay, that sounds good. I mean, one thing I like to think about when it comes to hooks too, especially in the virtual world that we're at, the background is like the number one thing that you can do. Like everyone has these backgrounds and there's things in there. You can latch onto one thing. I remember like somebody I was talking to, they had Legos in the background. It's like, why do you have these Legos in the background? Or somebody else had Pop Funkos, and I'm like, why do you have these Pop Funkos? Right? Like, tell me more. What Pop Funko is it? Why do you have it? I found out it was from his daughter, and so like those are really quick ways to get people to be more vulnerable and just find ways to find like the smallest minute things that you can actually
So
connect.
you describing hooks because you found something in the environment to talk to. But what's stopping you to do your own hooks? to put stuff on your background that will resonate. So, for example, I have a green screen behind me here. Okay. And if I join a call, people are like, what's up with the green screen? Why you have a green screen? So now I can talk about my media, my podcast. You have a guitar behind you. Hey, you play guitar. Okay, I don't have guitar because I don't play guitar. You can have a Lego, whatever, like different things that really related to you. In the book, I was describing actually a part when I joined the call for a business call, and the gentleman had a sailing boat right behind him. And I'm like, why do you have a sailing boat? Are you sailing? He's like, oh, yes. And we end up talking about sailing for half an hour. I just came back from Croatia from a sailing trip. We didn't talk any business at all. But guess what? A week after, he invited me to his sailboat, and we spent 2 hours talking about business.
Business on a sailboat. I'm jealous. I'm jealous already. I don't know. That's pretty good.
No, I think that's really important to make your own background something that people can hook on to. And I think a lot about that. That's why I don't know if you can see, like I have some plants because I love plants, and then these are always really interesting and fun.
Yes.
And they're API enabled, so sometimes in my demos I'll have something going on on my screen, and then they'll start changing, and so it's I really like that. And the green screen, I think the fact that you just whipped that out was hilarious. So, yep, this is actually a green screen, and they're a lot of fun to play with. Um, wow, own personal hooks. I always try to tweak up my background and see if anyone notices like small things.
Try to incorporate like little things too. Like, I mean, for the people I've been listening to podcasts, I'm like in this flux of like constantly traveling and doing some digital nomading. But something that I like to do are like the bare minimum when it comes to the hooks. Like everybody listens to music. So I like putting up like records behind me because then it's an instant moment for somebody that likes music to say, hey, what records do you have back there? And I like to diversify the music that's actually up there. So that way I'm covering a few different genres versus just one single genre. Because then I'm basically banking on the other person coming in and liking rap and hip hop. Versus if I have rap and hip hop, soul, funk, old school music. It's like I start covering a wide variety of music, gives the person an opportunity to say, oh, I actually like some music like that too. Now we could spend 10 minutes talking about music before we even get into business.
So I sometimes join a calls with an Eminem t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Not always working, but when it's working, it's amazing. Like, oh my God, Eminem, that's it. The call will be amazing.
It's good. I mean, like any of those little things can really separate a call. And I think it's one of the ways that you can win more effectively is through the authentic relationship building. If you can find a way to basically become friends with the person you're selling to, that happens at the very first onset of that meeting. You can find a way to spend the first 10 minutes not talking about business, not talking about the company background, not talking about the customers you serve, but just connecting on a very human level. You've established a new level of trust throughout the sales cycle. So as you move into the business, into the product, they're more interested because they're interested into what you're saying.
100%. And here's an important part because people sometimes like, well, how would I know? Like, oh, dude, did you try Facebook? Did you try LinkedIn? Did you actually try to go on LinkedIn and put the person you're going to talk to about there and just scroll down and see what they did? Don't be a creep. Okay, don't go and say, hi, hello. I just noticed you have a nice yacht here in Miami and you had a nice summer. Don't be a creep, but check where they learn, check where they live, check which languages they speak.
Mhm.
Like, guess what? Let's say you speak English and some other languages, and you understand that this person on the call speak the same language as you. It's so interesting when you join the call and you start and you just start speaking a different language, or you notice the school. So you can use all the small. We talk a lot about discovery, but discovery can start it way before you joining the call. People don't realize, for example, that public companies have public records. They actually put a lot of public information. You don't need to ask how many people working there or what their business plan. You can find it online. The same you can find about people. And if I'm joining a call with Ryan and Samir and I cannot find any information about Ryan and Samir, and they maybe have a very, very small LinkedIn or no LinkedIn at all, it's an indication that Ryan is a very close person. There is probably something that he doesn't want to go open up. Not bad, not good. It just this is the way Ryan will be or Samir will be. And don't go flashy. Just be kind of more reserved for this person. They'll expect and they will kind of respect you more. Actually, today was very interesting conversation. I have a very dear friend. He's autistic, and we recorded an episode about soft skills for autism. What does it actually mean? It's a completely different level. It's a completely different way for them to understand the human, all these nuances of what motivates human. So you don't really know what moves other person, and it's like timbits. No, you try something, you see what's working, you try something else. Don't try the same technique every time with the same person if it doesn't work first time. And kind of be patient, take clues, write them down, and then use them differently.
I sometimes like have to really dial it back quickly on some of my calls because I like to have like a lot of personal anecdotes and jokes that I'll make throughout. But if you find that closed reserve person, look, that first joke that doesn't land and there is no reaction, just boom, jokes out the door. Like keep it straightforward because they don't want to hear the jokes. They don't want to hear the fluff. They don't want to hear the personal story. They just are there for one specific reason. Give them the reason why they're there. The other stuff's great for those other, prospects that want to engage in those things. But if they don't, you got to figure out how to dial it off and get it out. Just throw it away as soon as it doesn't land because the second joke is only going to get worse. The third joke's only going to get worse. And they're going to say, this person just isn't even serious about really meeting me at the level that I'm. So I know you have a book, and I want to make sure that we cover a little bit of time on the book and give you some opportunity to tell us a little bit more about it. So why don't you go ahead, give us an overview on the book and why everyone should be reading it.
Everything I spoke for the last 40 minutes was from the book, honestly. Fear, discovery, voice, video, speech, asking questions, all in the book. It's all came into the book. It's relatively small. It's 135 pages. I want it to be small. I wanted to have people the ability to read the book. And I'm going to tell you, read the book, you're going to know everything because it's not how it's working soft skills. You need to have this curiosity to see, oh, I was not thinking about voice development. Oh, I was not thinking about questions. Okay, how can I practice this? So there's 14 chapters, there's relatively small chapters, and each of the chapters jump to a separate topic. And in the end of the book, I have something called SSDP, Software Skills Development Plan. And this plan, I hope we want to help people not just to read the book, but start doing exercise, finding a mentor, finding somebody they can work with for 30, 60, 90, 120 days to be able to improve soft skills. So this is kind of short a bit about the book, but if you listen to and watch the entire episode, we named and gave some reference from the book. And the idea is to help people learn how to connect to people quicker. And the moment they connect to people quicker on a personal level, it will enable them to later on sell and explain much more. Because the moment you have the person's attention, the moment they care about who you are, this is the magic moment where they're going to start listening to what you're trying to pitch to them.
What was the inspirational moment for you to write the book? What was it that triggered you to say, I want to write a book about soft skills?
Several things. What we mentioned in the beginning, the idea of what we have in our mind, how we outcome this. I saw hundreds of speeches from the vendors because I work for an integrator VAR and I work with many vendors and I didn't really like how they present. It's all majority of the time was here's my presentation, here's my demo. Didn't really like it. I also saw quite a big change in the sales engineering and salespeople. The salesperson right now spending much more time with legal and procurement and all the NDAs and the MNDAs. And the sales engineer is no longer just the person that's doing a demo. They are much more dynamic. They are much more in a sales position to sell because it's very complex. In cyber and IT, there's many things to cover. All these small things are what triggered me to write a book. And definitely the pandemic, definitely this change of working over Zooms, Teams, using video, using voice. I saw this big change that we're not connecting to
Okay,
people.
very nice. Well, if you haven't checked out the book, make sure that you go and check it out. It can be found on Amazon, right?
You can find it on Amazon. Just put my name, Evgeniy Karam, EVGENIYKHARAM, or go to softskillstech.com or .ca, softskillstech, and it's the website for the book and everything around the book. I also started to do workshops for vendors to explain to them what can be done. And funny enough, many of the techniques and ideas are also applicable to people that are not at sales. So I now started to present in the conferences about soft skills in technology in general, how you can use it in teams, how you can use it when you ask questions, how you can use it when you want to present an idea to your boss or to your manager.
Okay, and there's one last thing before we let you go. I want to make sure we address this because I found this out about you last time we met. You eventually started taking personal photographs for Robert Herjavec. For those that aren't familiar with the name, he's on Shark Tank. Give us the short story here on how that happened, and I'm
Yes.
excited. I think our audience would be too.
So I got intrigued in photography in around 2010, and Robert was racing Ferraris. There's something called Ferrari Challenge, and he invited three of us, me, Mike, and Sean, to join him in Laguna Seca to watch race. Laguna Seca is a very, very nice racetrack north of LA. And I'm like, racing. I never do photography for racing. So I didn't have the professional gear, but I went and rented a lens and then went online, like, okay, how do I do panning? What I need to understand about racing photography. So I came there, I took pictures, sent Robert the pictures. He's like, dude, this is phenomenal. And how about you join me for the next time? We'll invite customers, we'll do pictures, and we have a nice time. So like, okay, I guess I need to learn about sport photography more. And I mean, in general, I like extreme sports, so it was down my alley. I got better gear, better lenses, learned a lot. Later on, spent quite a lot of time on a track on the different races, and learned how to pan. If you don't know what's panning it's mean when you move the camera with the subject, and there's a feeling that the subject is moving very fast because the subject is in focus and everything else is blur. Yes, you can do it on Photoshop, but you can also do it just using your hands. That is very, very interesting when you do it correctly. So all my kids have a lot of sport pictures on the bikes, how they kind of spinning away. And I had quite an interesting year, 2012, when I followed Robert. I have one of the pictures that was done in a racetrack called, I'm not looking, I forgot the name of the racetrack in Boston. I'll remember it later on. Limestone. It's in a rain, and we printed this picture by 4 by 6 feet on aluminum, and it was in his office for many, many years. And then around 4 years ago, there was a renovation in the office, and they moved the picture and put like big ass 80-inch TV. I'm like, can I have the picture? He's like, yeah, okay, take it. So now my sister basement has a humongous picture on the wall.
That's awesome. Did you ever race the cars or just take pictures of them?
No, no, I never raced the cars, but I spent a lot of time near Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and Porsches. It was quite interesting to see how fast they can fix them, how they can replace an engine overnight, fix the gear overnight. We were talking about SLAs and RMAs in AT. I was very impressed about the high availability created a new topic, a new level for me with the cars.
That's awesome, man. I have so many other questions around racing and racetracks. It's like I have a very big interest in cars and souping them up and all of that and going fast. So I think that's another conversation we might have to bring you back for. Just
Happy to do it.
I know. I also think there's like a sales engineering aspect too of like, you knew how to take photography, but you didn't know how to take sport photography, and the aspect of going and learning how to do that basically overnight. Because I think, sales engineers, especially as they go from job to job, like they're constantly learning new technology that they've never seen or worked with before. And a lot of that requires this level of figuring it out on your own, right? Doing the research and going through the channels to learn and identify. So I think like we could almost do a whole podcast on like
Yes.
your photography and how it relates to actually learning a new skill and why that's important. So,
Fake
we
it
really
until you
appreciate
make
having
it.
you. So yeah, we really appreciate having you on today. It's been an amazing discussion. For everyone else, make sure you go to Amazon, buy the book. Connect with Evgeniy on
LinkedIn.
Evgeny.
Yevgeny. The whole
You did
episode,
it. You did
the
it.
whole episode, the whole episode. Oh my! I had it. I had it. I
All
had
good.
it.
All
Soft
good.
skill.
Don't worry.
Bad soft skill. Bad soft skill. Don't do that. I waited the whole time, but make sure you connect with them on LinkedIn. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on,
Thank
and
you.
look forward to hopefully having you on again sometime.
Thank you very much.
All right, Samir. So let's debrief here today on episode 9, the importance of soft skills. I think this is a great topic for sales because I think it's something that's easily lost in the process. And I really appreciate Yevgeny's viewpoint on just the importance of the little things when it comes to breathing, your pace, taking pauses. I think these are really the small things that can really separate, the good from the great sales engineers or sales folks.
Mm-hmm. No, I definitely 100% agree. I think, especially as like SCs, we definitely tend to pride ourselves on being technically savvy and really knowing the technology. And I think the soft skills side almost comes in second place at times, and really thinking about keeping them in equal hierarchy. Like, yes, you need to have all that technical aptitude, but your soft skills will be the differentiator, I feel like. And that, what he was saying about breathing and getting into almost that state of mind before you jump in, even if it's like you have 1 minute before your next call, take some conscious breaths. I tend to do that, especially if I'm back to backs. I'll have 30 seconds or a minute between the calls. I'll go calm myself, 6 second breathing, 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out. That's 5 breaths in a minute. You can really easily bring down that heart rate, recenter yourself. And it's huge. I would recommend a book called Breath by James Nestor. And he talks about how breathing as like an act, we've almost like forgotten the art of breathing because it's just like second nature, but there's a lot of value in breathing properly, and we have kind of lost that as a civilization. As we become more and more technologically advanced, we forgot some of our basics. So I highly recommend reading that. And there was something else that I wanted to touch on that I totally lost, but maybe it'll come back.
What I would love to do is, as you were talking about breath and why it's so important, is like get the like every breath I take, we just like layer that in over the top, make make an interesting clip. That would be pretty fun. But no, I mean, I really think like this is something that we all forget about, especially as we get more intimately tied into deals. I think sometimes the soft skills can kind of get put on a secondary when you're learning new technology. You stop working on those soft skills all the time. But soft skills are something you can work on every call you're on, every interaction you have with people. Find those different cues that they might give you. If it's in person, if it's over Zoom, figure out what those cues are. So that way you know how to meet the level of energy that they're at, what their expectations are, and make sure that, everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, another thing that got me thinking is the whole teleprompter thing. It's like, do I need to get
Okay, I want a picture of this setup because as he was talking about it, I'm like, that sounds like the most magical setup in the world. So no free ads, but I'm getting the name of that teleprompter and I want a picture of this setup
yeah,
because wow, that sounds amazing. And I don't know if you noticed, but his eye contact throughout the entire video was so perfect.
it
I
was
was like, oh
laser.
my God, I need this setup. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to look into that. My desk, unfortunately, will have to get a revamp again to figure out if there's even space for another monitor here. But that would be really cool. I've never thought of using a teleprompter for Zoom calls and stuff.
I didn't even think about the innovation that's been brought to the teleprompter world too. Like this is brand new news for me. So I'm excited to learn more. But any last minute thoughts here before we wrap up for today?
I think just don't sleep on your soft skills. They come in clutch anytime. And as much as you're focused on tightening up your demo flow or making sure you understand the most latest AI technology, like if you have good soft skills, that can get you just as far.
All right, well, then I'll give it one last final ad read here at the very end. That does it for episode 9 of Diary of a Sales Engineer, The Importance of Soft Skills, with our guest, Evgeniy Karam. We appreciate everyone listening. Like, follow, smash the subscribe button, and we look forward to next episode.
Yep, and that's Evgeniy. One more time.
Yeah, don't mess it up. That's bad soft skill.
Hit stop in